There's nothing I love more than a homegrown tomato. And if you're growing tomatoes this year, then you'll probably have noticed how quickly they take off after being planted in the ground. Here's one that's been left to grow on its own, and here's one that I've tidied up. In this video, I'm going to show you how to prune your tomato plants like this one to avoid growing leaves and to grow delicious tomatoes instead. In order to prune effectively, we need to get familiar with the different parts of the tomato plant. First up is the main stem, which grows directly upwards from the ground. Above a certain height, you'll begin to see some small clusters of flowers, which is where the fruits will grow. Branching out horizontally, you'll find the aptly named fan leaves or sun leaves, and you should also notice extra growth poking out between the main stem and the sun leaves at a roughly 45-degree angle. These are called suckers. When they're small, they just look like extra leaf growth, but if you wait a week and let them get bigger, they start to look like a mini tomato plant poking out of the main stem. And that's the growing pattern of the tomato plant. It would naturally spread across the ground, and at all points along the main stem, it would root into the soil. That's why it grows these suckers, to harvest more nutrients, absorb more sunlight, and grow more fruit. But growing like that would take up a large area, so when cultivated and grown vertically, these suckers take resources away from the main stem. So it's always better to prune when the sucker is smaller, before the plant has spent a lot of energy trying to grow it. Getting them young also means you can very easily pull them off the plant. For suckers that are almost as thick as the main stem, you're going to want to cut them off with a sterilised set of pruners or secateurs. For indeterminate varieties, we're going to want to watch these plants like a hawk and remove every sucker. But for the determinate varieties that only produce a single crop all at once, we only want to remove the suckers that grow below the first set of flowers. Tomato plants love airflow, space and light, so pruning like this will help create a stronger plant and help the tomatoes develop faster, as the plant can divert more energy into producing fruits rather than obsolete and spare stems and leaves. Similarly, these lower leaves require energy to grow, but when the tomato plants get taller and the leaves fan out, the lower leaves become more and more shaded and might even begin to droop towards the ground, which makes them less effective at harvesting light, so we help the plant prioritise where to grow by cutting off the lower leaves. Additionally, most tomato diseases are fungal or bacterial and are transmitted to the plant from the soil that they're grown in, quite often becoming infected when water splashes from the ground or when there is direct contact. So another reason we prune the lower leaves is to limit disease and keep our plants healthy. To prevent any issues, we'll end up removing all the branches up to around 18 inches or 45 centimetres from the ground. However, when the plants are very young, just make sure there's no direct contact between the leaves and the soil. By pruning, we allow more airflow around the plant, which means when it rains, water can evaporate faster, which means the leaves stay wet for less time. Moisture encourages bacteria and fungi to colonise the leaves, so more airflow means there's less chance of infection and less risk of things like blight ruining your harvest. Once you've chopped off the lower leaves and removed any suckers, be sure to collect all the foliage from the area and dispose of it. Mine will be going into the garden waste bin for the council to come and collect. The last thing to do to get a great harvest is to manage the ground around the tomatoes. First off, we've got to remove any weeds and to stay on top of it to keep the air flowing nicely around the tomato plant. Second, we want to think about mulching the ground. Mulch is just a natural material like straw, wood chip or grass clippings, which provides cover for the soil so it doesn't get baked and dry out in the sun. This is particularly important if you've got clay soils like mine, and mulches naturally decompose over time, adding nutrients back into the soil. You can buy some mulch and have it delivered, but I'm just going to use grass clippings as I have a lot of mowing to do. We also want to think about companion planting. Some veg like onions repel pests, while plants like marigolds and nasturtiums attract others so strongly that they act as decoy plants. Alliums are great companions for tomatoes because they don't grow much foliage, especially early on, which allows for strong airflow between the plants. Other companion plants like basil are meant to enhance the yield and flavour of the tomatoes grown nearby, as well as repelling pests. So I'm going to be planting a row of basil in between my tomato plants. But of course, if you're growing indeterminate varieties, you're going to need to provide proper supports to make all this pruning worthwhile. So check out this video where I show you how I built these supports here. Be sure to press the like button if this video helped you out. And as always, happy gardening.